Growing up in San Joaquin County, I guarantee that every single local you meet will tell you to never ever go to the Lodi, California Skydiving and Parachute Center. That is, unless you want a death wish. I've repeated that statement to several people over the course of my entire life as though it was second nature. However, I never took a deeper look at the center and saw how deeply the horrors of that place ran. That is until now. Hello, you guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Crime with Kylie podcast.
The fact of the matter is, people die. Whether it's their fault or someone else's fault, they die.
Believe it or not, skydiving is relatively safe in the United States. Fatalities of skydivers who are diving alone happens less than 1 per 100,000 jumps. And it's even safer with tandem jumping. And if you don't know, tandem jumping is when you, a novice, or if you're not a novice, then a novice jumps with an experienced, certified parachuter. The fatalities of those incidents occurring in the United States happens every 1 per 500,000 jumps. And according to the United States Parachute Association, back in 2022, only 20 fatalities occurred per the 3.9 million jumps that went on that year. But this place, the Lodi Parachute Center, located off of Highway 99 near Acampo, California, has defied those statistics over the years. And they have not defied the statistics in a good way. In fact, since 1985, there have been 28 fatalities. 5 of those fatalities occurring from 2017 to 2021, which are pretty recent. The center first opened its doors to skydiving on April 1st of 1981. The original owner was Bill Doss, or Dosse. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, but we will hear some clips of him speaking about the center, and his belief system is that if you die, it was meant to happen, and that if you did not want to die skydiving, you should have stayed home. He's not big on accountability, as we will soon discover and disclose. The first recorded fatality occurred on January 27th of 1985. 38-year-old Michael Abbott arrived from Sunnyvale with his friends and his girlfriend. They were just looking to do something fun for the day. But as they were all falling from the plane, the friends and the girlfriend lost sight of Michael. His girlfriend would later find him deceased in a vineyard with an undeployed parachute. He was found in a nearby vineyard. Then on April 7th of 1993, there was a 15-year-old boy, the youngest victim so far. His name was Devin Whitaker, and he was from nearby Roseville, California, which was maybe an hour and a half drive away. That day, he arrived with his mother, and he and his mother were going to parachute. He jumped before his mom did. His mom watched his bridle, which helps release the parachute, billowing out of the side before watching her son hit the ground below and die on impact. Bill, the owner at the time, told reporters that the teen seemed like a very mature young man and had completed 10 jumps successfully on his own before this. Devin was the 5th victim of the Parachute Center. And with all of the things Bill has said over the years, who knows how much truth is actually in that statement. Devin was the 5th victim of the Lodi Parachute Center. The map that you're seeing on the screen shows where each of the fatalities took place. Several of them in vineyards, some of them near the freeway, some of them right on the freeway. With many of these fatalities, the primary issues were either that the parachutes did not deploy at all, or they got tangled somehow. And in one case, a man from Sacramento came down and his parachute was not deployed. His death was ruled as a suicide. Now let's go back to not too long ago on August 6th of 2016. An excited group of young friends arrived at the Parachute Center, ready to do one last fun thing together before going their separate ways and heading off to university. Francine Turner took her 18-year-old son, Tyler Turner, and his closest best friends to the Parachute Center. It was a beautiful Saturday morning with blue skies. The sun was out there surrounded by all of the vineyards. It was picturesque. The day before, on August 5th, the boys had been out to lunch together and had jokingly talked about, oh, what if our parachutes don't open? Sadly, that joke would become a reality. It would become a reality for Tyler, despite how much Francine, his mother, tried to keep all of the boys safe and paid for extra precautions. Once at the Parachute Center, Francine wanted all of the boys who were novices to do tandem jumps, so have an experienced, certified skydiver with them, attached to them the entire time. That person would be responsible for deploying the parachute and landing them safely. Francine recalled how a safety video was put on for all of the boys, but while they started to watch it, they were also quickly handed the liability forms. Somehow, they were expected to watch how to keep themselves safe while also signing their lives away down below. And if that wasn't bad enough, before the safety video even finished, the boys were ushered off into a different room to get all harnessed up. Tyler was paired with 25-year-old Young Kwon from South Korea. He spoke very little English and had just recently been certified. However, he wasn't actually certified, and it wasn't necessarily his fault. You see, someone else had falsely certified him, and several other people from countries like Mexico, Chile, once again, other people from Korea. That person was Robert Allen Pooley. By 2024, Robert Allen Pooley was 49 years old. He had been charged with 2 counts of wire fraud for what he was doing at the skydiving center. You see, Robert was running a fraudulent scheme. Back in 2010, Robert Allen Pooley had obtained ratings as a tandem examiner with the U.S. Parachute Association and with the uninsured United Parachute Technologies, LLC, a manufacturer of tandem parachute systems. He then began conducting training courses for candidates seeking to obtain their USPA tandem instructor ratings and/or their certification to use UPT tandem parachute systems. The certifications that he would hand out would allow people to become instructors and therefore do tandem jumps with novices. However, in August of 2015, the USPA and UPT suspended Pooley's tandem examiner ratings. This meant that he could no longer conduct the tandem examiner ratings on his own. He could teach along someone else who was still certified, but he alone was no longer allowed to do it. This, however, did not stop him. He hid the fact that he had been suspended and helped students fill out USPA and UPT rating paperwork to further the impression that the students would legitimately get their own tandem ratings through his courses. He fabricated course material, and as I mentioned earlier, he would find students from all around the world. He would have them each pay $1,100 USD to take this bogus course. To seemingly legitimize their certifications, he took the picture of a digital signature of someone else who was still properly rated as a tandem examiner. And if that wasn't bad enough, evidence suggests that the owner, Bill Doss, was well aware that Pooley's license to teach and instruct was suspended. There are some records that show that Bill collected part of the money that Pooley took from those students. Also, following this incident, the students would request that they get their money back, however, he refused to repay them. Now that we have that context, we can go back to talking about Tyler and Young Kwon. Tyler, before he went up in the plane, hugged his mother, told her that he loved her, and also knelt on the runway and said a prayer to God for safety. Francine, his mom, had also paid a bit extra for a videographer to come with him. So Tyler, the videographer, and Young Kwon all went up in the plane. The plane flew up around 13,500 feet, which is relatively normal. Usually, I believe the average is somewhere between 10,000 and 14,000 feet in the air. However, once the two of them jumped out of the plane, neither of the parachutes deployed. They were clearly attempting to deploy them, but it would not work. Due to this, the two young men, Tyler and Young Kwon, plummeted over 13,000 feet to their deaths. Tyler's mother, Francine, had to witness this. When medical examiners arrived and took their bodies away, the owner, Bill, did not cease operations. Planes kept going up and parachuters kept going down. There was no halting, there was no re-examining what went wrong. He just carried on with business as usual. And what he would say about this is very, very disturbing and disheartening. Bill said, and I quote, "We didn't stop because we don't like the guy. We didn't stop because we weren't interested in the guy. We didn't stop because life goes on." A wrongful death is on his case. Two young men lost their lives in a brutal way. They landed in a nearby vineyard. Their parachutes had been tangled together, which is why they didn't deploy. And Francine, Tyler's mother, only found out because all of the other boys and all the other parachuters were walking back, and her son wasn't one of them. And Bill just did not care. Clearly, he hadn't kept track of any of the other fatalities before. Didn't even mention, oh, hey, by the way, at my facility where I fly the planes here, plenty of people had died. Francine found out that day after her son died that 21 other people had died before him. I'm sorry, this man, I don't know how he has not been locked up yet. I don't even know if he's still alive. I'll get back to you guys on that one. At that point, soon after, the FAA did not determine the exact cause of the accident. They didn't do any further investigation and decide who was at fault. Sadly, though, it's common practice to not keep precise records of how many people have been jumping from a certain facility, and of those people, how many were fatalities. A federal watchdog of the National Transportation Safety Board put in a 2008 report. The FAA does not have data on the number of parachute jump operators or the number of type of aircraft used in parachute jump operations in the U.S. The absence of these data precludes any calculations of safety statistics for parachute jump operations, including accident rates. Additionally, the overall authority to regulate skydiving is very limited. And you would think that a non-commercial plane flying in shared airspace, literally allowing common people, novices, to just jump from them practically free fall, would be a bit more regulated, but it's not. There's like an age suggestion. The age suggestion is 18. However, as we saw, a 15-year-old boy jumped to his death. And because of the lack of proper records, we just have to go off of Bill's word of saying that he did it 10 times successfully and he seemed mature. Maturity does not account for body weight or overall capabilities in doing such a highly intensive sport. And why was he even allowed to do it 10 times in a row if that even happened? It's not like sledding down a hill where you can do it over and over and over again without getting too winded. That, especially on a young boy, had to have had some sort of effect. That is, if it even ever happened. The FAA investigations are just very limited overall. FAA investigations of skydiving accidents and incidents typically focus on inspecting the packing of the parachute and the reserve parachute and the rules of flight for the pilot and aircraft. If an accident involves a tandem jump, we also look at the instructor's qualifications. The FAA does not investigate to determine the exact cause of the event. This is probably why Bill is not in jail and has never been. There is also no special license for skydiving pilots and few training requirements for people who want to jump out of planes for fun. The FAA has a handful of specific certification requirements, including for people who want to pack parachutes or lead tandem jumps, but the agency outsources almost all of the training, certification, and maintenance of records to parachute manufacturers and the United States Parachute Association, a private industry and lobbying group. Now, earlier in this video, I told you guys a statistic from 2022 about only 20 fatalities in 2022 per 3.9 million jumps that occurred. This was from the USPA, the United States Parachute Association. However, a key piece of information here that was missing is that you can be a member voluntarily, which also means you can choose to not be a member. Guess which skydiving center isn't a member of that? The one in Lodi that's been under many, many names over the years. Wonder why. So the numbers from this parachute center are not included in those reports. Over the years, aside from fatalities, one of the closest things that we even got to an investigation was when an anonymous tipster said that one of the pilots had been drinking. Now, we don't know exactly which pilot this was, but at least from my dad, who did jump for whatever reason from one of these planes in the 90s, said that the owner, Bill, was the one flying the plane at that point in time, so who knows. In just 2 years after Tyler and Quan's deaths, there were 3 more fatalities. 42-year-old Matthew Ciencio of June Lake, California, 54-year-old Brett Houghton, a resident of Alamo, California, and 54-year-old Nina Mason, who fell to her death in a nearby alfalfa field. Soon after these deaths, one that would make national news would occur in 2019. You see, this skydiving center is right next to a major freeway, 99. Cars are going so fast, semi-trucks are going fast, and as I'm driving down it, have seen parachuters over my car, okay? It was only a matter of time due to the placement of this parachute center alone that something like this would happen, and it is horrific. On September 26th of 2019, 28-year-old Maria Vallejo went to go skydive. However, instead of clear conditions that day, the winds were very high. After she would jump out of the plane, the wind would blow her parachute into oncoming traffic on the highway. She was hit by an oncoming big rig before hitting the asphalt. The most recent death occurred 2 years after that in 2021. It was in April of 2021, nearly 4 years ago exactly today, that 57-year-old Sabrina Call of Watsonville would go to the Lodi Parachute Center to skydive. Her parachute got tangled and she fell to the ground and died. In response to this horrific event, Bill had this to say: "We're sad, but it's just like a car wreck or anything else." Bill also went on to say that the only way that they would stop operations is if the sun went down. That would be the stop. And it seems that Bill has always been a heartless, creepy old man, because in 2004, when Marvel Strawn hit the ground and died, Bill just walked up to his body, cut off the parachute, and just proceeded to go back to business. The only somewhat good news is that in 2021, he handed over ownership to a friend of his, Richard Smith, and thankfully, since then, no one has died. We will hope that it stays that way. But sadly, his involvement did not stop. I briefly looked into it, and he is still alive and kicking at 82 years old. He is still employed at the Parachute Center. He takes calls, he takes payments, and guess what? He still flies planes of passengers. So there's that. As of today, it's still open and fully operational. As for poor Tyler's family, they won a lawsuit for $40 million, but apparently have not received a single payment. Lodi and Acampo are great for a lot of things. They're great for wineries and sightseeing and a relaxing weekend, maybe some bowling, but definitely no skydiving. If you're thinking about skydiving, please consider an indoor skydiving center, or just, don't come to Lodi for it. Thank you guys for listening, and I will see you all next time.